I did all the things I've been avoiding. Want to see? Hey friends, it's nice to see you again. Or, well, for you to see me again, because that's kind of how YouTube works. Yeah, it's been a minute since I've been here. My name's Laura. My pronouns are she, her. I really like tarsiers. He's a tarsier. That's a hobnob. He's my mascot. Anyway, yeah, I always forget that most people don't actually know what tarsiers are and have no idea how to pronounce the word. So if you're confused, it's tarsier, tarsier. There's actually a really good YouTube video out there, the True Facts video. It's True Facts about the tarsier. You can say tarsier as long as you're saying it ironically. If you're saying it unironically, no, that is not allowed. My little heart will die. Um, but yeah, I haven't been here for a little bit because I got this cool summer job. I taught a zoology class, and it was really fun. Um, but I didn't really stitch much because, oh boy, I had seen disorganization before, and this took it to another level. So I stitched another project. I did another Maneki Neko. I cannot even I have no idea how many of these I've made. I've made so many. But this is the gift for the academic dean of our summer campsite because he was the glue that held it together. If you're curious, so I just taught for John Hopkins CTY, the Center for Talented of Youth. It is a long running program, like really prestigious summer program. But this year, oh boy, there was enough problems that there were multiple news articles about the rampant disorganization. It was like high level. Um, and I think somebody got fired. So yeah, if you want the dish, like go read it. From our perspective, though, it's just we were drastically understaffed. Everybody who was on site at my site was great. I loved my colleagues. It was just wow. It was a very intense 3 weeks, and because John, our academic director, was just so wonderful, and like he was running in five directions constantly at the time, but like we always knew he had our backs. So this is a gift that I will be sending to him. So there's actually two sessions, and the second summer session like just wrapped a couple days ago. I only taught the first session. Very grateful for that. But I know John was at the second one. So I have been waiting until I know he's back at home so I can send this to him because yeah, we needed this. Like I didn't know when my specimens were arriving. I didn't know what had been ordered for my class. I was hired last minute and we made it work. But yeah, the only reason I survived was John, our academic director, was great, and I lucked out. I had the best TA I have ever had in my life. Um, Without those two people, like it would not have worked at all. And the kids, like, thankfully, they rolled with it. They also told me they learned more in those 3 weeks than they learned in an entire year. So that was really cool. But yeah, we got to talk about a bunch of animals. Oh my goodness. I made my students riot because I told them fish weren't real. I am a little sad to be saying this in a venue where I don't get to see your facial expression. But yeah, fish aren't real phylogenetically. That it's a phrase that helps us understand phylogenetics or how different species are related to each other. And what we consider to be fish are actually several groups that aren't necessarily particularly closely related. We are more closely related to some types of fish than others. So that's why you can say fish aren't real. Obviously, it's dramatic for effect. In that sense, it's very much a teaching tool to get people to care about phylogenetics. So if you want, go learn some stuff about phylogenetics and learn why fish aren't real. Obviously, it's more complicated than that because colloquial words aren't scientific words and they don't necessarily have to match. So there are multiple layers, but yeah, I use that as a hook to get my high schoolers excited about learning about taxonomy and phylogenetics. And yeah, they like totally rioted. I was really impressed with them because they got the entire camp talking about how fish weren't real. My class was the one that was always being talked about. I think we were the favorite class. this was also a residence camp, and we had like several of the RAs come and visit us and do some of our dissections with us. So yeah, I definitely was a little bit proud because we were the favorite class. Um, yeah. And I had there was one point where I ended up watching over the computer science class for like 15 minutes because the other teacher had to run. And then the computer science students were like, okay, you have to tell us why aren't fish real? So that was all really cute. But you probably are more here to talk about the cross stitching, even though I have so many wonderful stories from this camp. Yeah, I don't want to do that type of experience again, but hey, I had a good time. It was a good thing for once to have stories. So so it's a teeny bit different if you see my previous one. So the margins are actually a little bit smaller, and I didn't add a hanger. This was because the edges of the paper this time got a little damaged, so I decided to cut them off. And you know what? It still works. Doesn't I mean, so I actually still have one of the ones that I normally make, so you can see this one is a little bit smaller. Didn't add the hanger. And I also didn't do the back stitching, so this one's just kind of a void. Here we have these little back stitch lines. You can see a little bit more of the detail of the cat. That's because I was making this one and I got to the end, I was just like, no, I can't. I have made so many of these. I love them. They're near and dear to my heart. They're an important part of my culture. I love giving them to my friends. Everybody loves them. But I need to move on. I want to cross stitch more than this one pattern. So I think this is going to be the last of these that I make for a while. So because I've made so many and I've made so many in the past couple of months, I've actually had on my desk, because I cross stitch right here, this has been my little like kit where I make them. So I put the finished ones here. So I have my single-sided ones that I use kind of as my guide for when I'm making them. And this used to be like full of floss, all of the colors I needed, extra pieces of paper, and you can tell it's almost empty now. I just have these two that I still need to gift, and then my guidelines, which I'll keep these. I'm sure I'll come back to these eventually, but not for a while because there are so many other beautiful patterns out there I want to stitch. So I'm gonna do that. Um, I've been really excited to share all of my mannequin and echoes with people, and it's nice that people seem to like them. But there is more to me, and I will be doing that next. So obviously, I've been at home sleeping a lot, recovering from this super intense, rather crazy camp I just taught. But the other thing I've been doing is I've actually been on a kick to do all the things I've been putting off for like a year or over a year. So the first thing, I have frame finish. I'm so proud of this. So this is a wedding present for one of my childhood friends, Peter. He's getting married this fall. I'm super excited. And he and his fiancee, Kimmy, they met in the geology department at the University of Texas, Austin. So this is a request from them. Obviously, they love geology. They wanted Texas. There's a little heart. I did my best job to try and make sure that's where Austin is located. I cross-checked lots of maps. It's just I had a hard time finding a map with the geological features and then the exact placement of Austin, so I'm not entirely sure if it's on the right planes here, but I did my best, and I also sent them a picture, and they didn't tell me it was wrong. So I'm gonna take that as good enough. They had the opportunity to give me feedback before I framed it. So I think you saw the finished stitch last time, and it did sit for a while before I framed it, but I finally put everything together. I am totally in love with these double mats that you can get at Michael's. This is just all Michael's. I think this frame was even on sale, but the fabric, ooh, there's Cat here. The fabric has a little bit of this gold sparkle. So I wanted, to reflect that in the frame. But then I noticed the frame was a slightly different shade. So that's why I wanted to separate it with the mat. And I think there's enough space here that it just looks coordinating. I really like it. But I like everything's a nice size. I'm super proud. I managed to fit their wedding date right along here on the Gulf of Mexico. I did have to stitch it, I think, 2 times to get the placement right. But after this, on the second try, I think it worked out really nice. And every time I've sent them photos for progress photos, they've been really happy. Whenever I'm doing a wedding present, I generally like to get the people involved and make sure it is exactly what they want. I did put this off, mostly because I just didn't really enjoy stitching this project. The pattern is great. The designer is also a career designer, so make sure you want to support designers that come from marginalized groups. It's just always harder for them to succeed. Dee did a fantastic job with the Stitch for Pride challenge, and I was really happy to see people participate in June. But remember, we want to do this more than just June. This is things we want to do year round. So awareness months are great for reminding you of the things you should be doing year round. So yeah, definitely check out these other patterns. If this is your jam, the pattern was great. I just prefer motifs and not that. It's fine. Um, I'm learning a lot about how I will offer to make gifts for other people. Because what I've learned is now when I want to stitch something for somebody, I go find the first round of patterns and then they can like choose from things that I'm willing to stitch rather than just starting from scratch. But yeah, I'm really excited. Oh, I'm also finished months in advance this time. Um, Another one of my best friends, Naomi, she got married last fall, and I also stitched something for her wedding, but I was late. I had to ship it to her after the wedding, and I was super embarrassed about that. So, not doing that mistake this time. But yeah, Naomi's wedding present. I'll try to put up a picture was like very intense. I loved it. She wanted cross stitch people, so we got a custom pattern, and then I thought it wasn't fancy enough, so I got Long Dogs Forevermore and I stole the filigree, and it was a whole thing. But because it just kind of got out of hand, and that was my first like nice thing that I was framing, I was worried and I kind of put it off. And anyway, Naomi was very kind and she was happy with the final result. But I am working to make sure that whenever I do a fancy gift like that, is actually on time. Anyway, the next thing I framed, just been on this total framing kick, was I finished this black work piece like a year ago, and it's just been sitting there. So here it is. I finally framed it. This is just a nice little Mill Hill frame. I was going back in my Instagram post because how I've been keeping track of the fabric and the floss is I'm putting that into all of my Instagram posts, and that's kind of my journal because I don't need to have a paper journal. I have enough stuff. But apparently, this was so early in my cross stitch journey, I didn't really write down what all of this was. So I'm pretty sure this is 28 count. I think it's a Lugana. It's this beautiful, like dusky purple. I love it. It was really hard to photograph. Almost all the photographs show the fabric is much more washed out than it actually is. The thread, it's sulky 12 weight, which worked well for this pattern because there's a lot of open space. I wouldn't use sulky 12 weight for a more dense black work pattern. And this one, it was a little bit difficult to stitch because there's just like a lot of space. So you have to be very careful with your counting. And there were a fair number of partial stitches. So it was just, I went slow. Even though it was one of my first attempts at black work, it went fine. I noticed I haven't been going back to black work as often though, probably because I just love Pattern Keeper and there isn't a Pattern Keeper equivalent for black work. It's just a little bit harder to mark your progress. I haven't quite figured out what I'm going to do with that, so that's one of the reasons I've been more cross stitch than black work lately. Oh, you can also tell I did a super fancy finishing to the back of this frame, but it works. This one, I lace all of my pieces when I frame them in rectangular frames like this. And one side, the top and bottom, was actually too long, so the fabric overlaps on itself. So it's kind of more sewing it together rather than lacing. It works, but definitely in the future, I will probably trim my fabric so I don't have to do it quite like that. That I regretted, but you know what? It worked. It's done. And I'm really happy. I really love the simple finish here. Black really brings out the black. And you'll notice I redid my little book case here a little bit. Wanted to showcase a few different pieces. And then my next finish, this is probably the one I'm the most proud of. It's my black cat by Cross Stitching for Fun. The designers are a pair of ladies, one Russian and one Ukrainian. So you might imagine they're in a particularly interesting spot right now. Unfortunately, my understanding is their Etsy shop got taken down because it was listed as a Russian site, and they tried to talk with Etsy to like make sure that it could still stay up and the money could go to the Ukrainian designer. Unfortunately, last I checked, it's still down, but they have a wonderful Instagram and a, really kind of a really supportive Facebook group. So I do recommend checking them out, even though there is not a way to currently buy their patterns, which is a little sad because like the Russian partner was very vocal in that all of the money was going directly to the Ukrainian designer because she's definitely in the harder spot of the two. But so the stitching here again, I stitched this like I think over a year ago. I'm pretty sure this is 28 count. I think it's another Lugana. I want to say it's like Whisper, maybe some light gray. I love it. It's just a really nice neutral. I'm just not a fan of white. White looks kind of boring. And this is 2 strands of étoile. So it's probably not going to show up too well on camera, but it's just this beautiful, subtle sparkle in person. And I was actually able to use a loop start with this, but I did find myself like petting the thread. So I bring it through to the top of the fabric and then I'd pet the thread, help everything lie as flat as possible. And then, I would make my stitch. And I ended up petting the thread a lot. It was kind of nice. It was therapeutic. It was kind of like petting my cat. And I did get a nice finish. I think I went a little bit more slowly than I do with normal cotton floss, and I just made sure that each stitch was lying down nicely. I'm looking at it now, and there's a few places where it's just a little bit crinkly, but it's fine. But again, you notice I love these double mats. So the double mat with Texas Geology, there's a spacer that I kept, so it was a little kind of a little bit of a 3D effect. This frame, there actually just wasn't enough room to have the spacer and the piece, so I had to remove that so I could still fit the back of the frame on, which, I mean, it still looks nice. Maybe the 3D effect would be nice, but hey, I really like this, and the silver shiny frame, again, just another one from Michael's, my new favorite place, works really well. So I am super excited to be able to finally display this one. Also, I signed it kind of along the line of the cat's tail. I almost always forget to actually add my initials when I'm stitching, and I tend to actually add these right before I frame them. So I had to go back into my Instagram post and be like, what year did I stitch this? I'm not sure. Apparently I stitched this in 2021. But yeah, I am so happy with this one, and I'm a little sad that I just left it unframed in my project roll for so long because it would have been nice to have been displaying this one all this time. Oh, I have too many things. So those are all of the framed finishes I've done lately, but I do have another stitch finish. So recently I bought, these are just plastic tubes with little ends. They're supposed to be like waterproof project holders for like art projects. I don't know that I would test them by fully immersing it in water, but definitely nice, nice and water resistant nonetheless. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna fold it up in here and it'll be out of the way for a little bit because I know I'm not gonna frame this one immediately. And then I realized I still have to show it to y'all. So I will take it out of here. You'll notice these are only an inch wide, so I had to really roll this tightly. It does take a little bit of effort to get it in here, but I like it because I know they won't be crushed or anything. So here is my plague doctor. This is another gift. So my friend Keith, he bought his first house again over a year ago at this point. And he was having a bad day, so I offered to make him a housewarming present. And after some searching, this is the pattern he chose. I mean, I like it. I did a color conversion of the flowers. Originally, they were blue, but they kind of looked like ume or plum blossom flowers to me, like 5 petals, nice and round. Sakura or cherry blossoms, they are lighter pink and they have a notch. And the ones that have the big fat petals and are a brighter pink, those are ume or plum blossoms. Um, so I think the pink like really nicely brightens it up. And it was a nice pattern. It was pattern keeper accessible, makes me happy. But once I started stitching it, I could tell that this hadn't been truly color tested before the designer just sold it. So there are actually two different colors of gray in this hat, but they look pretty much the same. And oh my God, the shading, it was so annoying because they were almost the same color of gray. I had a hard time being like, wait, which thread is which? What's going on here? And now if you look at it just with your eyes, you can tell there's like something going on. It's not just one block of the same color, but it just, instead of looking like good shading, just kind of looks wrong. So I do wish I had noticed that before I stitched the hat, and I could have maybe switched it out for two grays that were a little bit more different so you could actually see the shading. But by the time I noticed the problem, I was like too far in, and I was like, I will just power through this. So this actually sat in roll for about 9 months, and I only recently decided to get it out and just get through it. So I have recently sent the picture to my buddy Keith, and he's in the process of choosing a frame. So that's why this won't be framed for a little bit, because he needs to choose exactly what he wants. So I feel confident in wrapping it up, and I can move it on to the next thing. One of the reasons I really wanted to get this done is it was living on one of my scroll frames. I'm a scroll frame girl. I love them. Just, it's how I like to work. But it was like taking up the space on this one frame for 9 months. And there's some projects I really want to stitch on that frame. And one of my rules for how I avoid having too much going on is I have one of every different size of this particular brand of frames. It's those clip ones that you can, I've seen on Amazon and a couple Etsy sellers. I actually think they're Ukrainian made. But I limit myself. I'm only allowed to have one frame of any particular size. Just a rule I've set for me that helps me avoid my stash and my number of whips getting out of hand. So I needed to just get through this one. And also, it's another present. I wanted to be able to gift it. It was kind of laying in the back of my head, being like, you should give this to Keith. And I'm much closer to doing that now. And it's nice to have that frame ready because there are multiple projects that I want to stitch that need that frame. Another thing I've been doing is I made this sign. So we had an electrician come to the house, and because we had a light switch that was acting up, and then he saw this on my wall. He was really excited, and then he asked if I could make him one. He wanted it in the Pan-African colors here. And I was like, sure, I'm more than happy to do that. He asked this over a year and a half ago. Obviously, I'm doing it on my own schedule, but so this pattern I charted myself. It's just one of the free DMC fonts. I had a nice time looking at all the different reds. So I want to say this is 666, this is 444, and this is 700 are the colors I decided on. And I think they look pretty good. This is, again, just 14 count Aida, 2 threads, DMC. I'm not the biggest fan of the coverage. This was also particularly stiff fabric. I ended up using a smaller needle than I would normally use, because when I'm stitching on 14 count, normally I use a 24 size needle. So I had to get out my 26 size needles because it was just too hard to put it back and forth. I did kind of regret, maybe I should have washed this fabric, loosened it up a little bit, but it was so little, and I was just, no, I'll just power through it. I do that a lot. Once I've already started on something, I'm like, no, we're just going to power through this. It's not worth making it better, which maybe that's something I need to worry about. But yeah, so I am feeling relieved because there are so many things that have just been sitting there waiting to be completed, and now they're done. Now I need to send an email being like, hey Jatana, I want to come pick up your project that you requested a year and a half ago. I need to go mail Peter's wedding gift. But you might be wondering, why am I doing all of these things now? Well, it's because I'm moving. I guess you might also be confused, okay, if you're moving, why are you framing things? Doesn't that make them more bulky? What I'm doing is like I had all of the frames already. They had just been sitting there, and it was easier to just get all of these done out of the way so I can pack everything up. It's a little bit sad. I am so excited about this one. I want to display it, but I'm actually like going to be putting it back in the right back in the packaging for the frame so I can make sure it is nice and protected for shipping. Yeah, I booked movers. I have a flight, like everything's set up on the other side. I just need to pack up my entire life. I do have a couple weeks, but one thing I've been trying to decide is because I will be without. I booked movers, so I will be without the majority of my stuff for a couple weeks. And how much of my cross stitch projects do I keep with me? Like, do I just pack everything away and just not do cross stitch for a couple weeks? Or do I try and have a few projects? Because I do have like maybe a small frame. Um, I don't know. And also, like, how much should I do now? Should I actively be trying to not cross stitch at the moment to, have fewer things to deal with, fewer things to pack away? Um, yeah, please help. Give me your advice. This is not the first move I've done. It's also not the first long distance move I've done. Like all of that is easy. When I was talking with the moving company, like they were like, "Wow, this was the easiest conversation I've ever had. Like you know exactly what you're doing." I'm like, "Yep, I do." But still, like I had the last time I moved, I wasn't as into cross stitch as I was now, so I'm just not quite sure what to do about that. And yesterday, like I was like trying to finish all these things and I wanted to show them off to you. And then I was like, oh, well, I'm too tired to film my floss tube right now, but I still need to do something. So I like panicked and I started an entire new project, which obviously that's the smart thing to do when I'm moving. Anyway, yeah, whatever. Um, oh, I like totally forgot to grab the book this pattern is from. I'll be right back. I found the book. So this is a book I got on Etsy from a Japanese cross stitch seller. So yeah, shipping shipping was terrible, but sometimes that's what you got to do. So this is Kawaii Nippon or Cute Japan in cross stitch. This one's really fun because they have a bunch of Japanese cultural symbols. So obviously I took the daruma from the cover here. I modified it a tiny bit. So this one has 2 rows at the bottom. I kind of liked it just with the 1 row here. I thought I don't know, looked cuter than me. You can see both of his eyes are filled in on the cover. I only filled in one eye. And also, the colors in this book are charted in Olympus thread. And at one point, I did actually find a chart that converts Olympus thread to DMC, but I just pulled whatever colors I wanted. You can also see I did not fill in his face. And these things here, those were originally charted in white, but I thought I really liked it with the negative space. One of my favorite things about cross stitch and why I'm drawn to it is I like the interplay between stitched versus not stitched. So you get to play with negative space. There's that difference in texture and like you can see, I really like fun fabrics. Sparkly fabric is my jam. It's my favorite thing. So I think I've talked a little bit about daruma before because I have one on my bookcase. There's also another daruma here. But these are essentially good luck dolls. And so you get a daruma and you fill in one eye. And generally, I've heard it stated that when you make a wish, but really it's when you set a goal, and it's a goal that you're going to work towards. So goals for students tend to be pretty common, like I'm going to pass this test, or like I'm going to get this job. So it's like uh, you're wishing that it's going to happen, but it's one of these things that you are actively working to make towards that's going to happen. And traditionally, whatever goal you set should happen within a year. So you fill in one eye when you set your goal, and then you fill in the other eye when that goal is achieved. So you can see I have achieved my goal here. That's why I keep my daruma there as kind of this, you know, to remind me that I achieved something. It's cool. When I'm stitching things like this, it's going to be a little bit harder when it's on the wall to, fill in that other eye. So I like to do is fill in one eye, and this is more a symbol to remind me to keep on working towards things. And I've also seen other Japanese American artists make similar decisions. So when you see something with one eye like that, that's what that means to me. You could stitch something with both eyes, but me personally, I would only choose to do that if like it's in remembrance of a specific goal I achieved. And you can also, traditionally, daruma are red. I'm not super happy with the red I chose here. This is 817. I think if I do this again, I would make it a slightly darker red. And if you look online, there are apparently like different categories that go along with the different colors. I just chose the purple one because I like purple. Purple's my favorite color. But yeah, if you're curious, go look up what some of the different colors means. But yeah, I'm like, this was less than 500 stitches. I stitched this in just a couple hours last night when I was panicking and didn't want to do anything else. I don't know, I needed another project. And daruma are another thing that make me really happy because I have another daruma on the back of my 2022 pillow here. I believe I gave you the same explanation then. This guy also only has one eye, though this is of course a much smaller one. I got this pattern from a slightly different Japanese pattern book. So I've heard a couple people comment like, oh, but it's so hard. Like there just aren't many designers from these other cultures. That's why we have so many, white people designing patterns from different cultures. There are a bunch of Japanese cross stitch designers out there, but you do need to put in a little bit of effort to go find them. Like I did have to pay exorbitant shipping to get this book. I will try and go find the Etsy shop I ordered this from. What I did is I just ordered a bunch of books all at once, so the shipping made it more worthwhile. So I have several Japanese cross stitch books. This one's kind of fun because it also has like traditional Japanese patterns as a few of it. Oh, here's another one. So like rabbits pounding rice, because in Japanese culture, we see a rabbit pounding mochi on the moon, which out of all the things that you can find on the moon, I think that's the most adorable one. This one also has patterns for several traditional folk tales. So this is the story of the woodcutter's wife or the woodcutter's daughter, the moon princess, sometimes called Kaguya-sama. She is referenced in Naruto, kind of similar to Chang'e in Chinese mythology, but of course, slightly different. So yeah, highly recommend if Japanese culture is your jam, you want to do these things, like go look up some of these books because you're going to get better and more accurate patterns when you're buying from someone who's from that original culture. But yeah, that's a little bit of my soapbox. But you get super cute patterns like this one. I love him so much. I can foresee, I don't know, have I entered the age of daruma? Am I just going to be making daruma nonstop now that I need a break from my maneki nekos? I don't know. But yeah, highly recommend Sparkly Fabric. It's great. So because I've had like all of this stuff happen, I've been job searching, I'm moving now. My stitching has been very haphazard. Earlier this year, I started WhipGo, partly inspired by my friend Lauren over at Cross Stitch Bunny, because I saw her remake her WhipGo chart a couple times. I was like, and that kind of like sparked in me, oh, I think I can see how I can do it for myself. But because I've had all of these things happen, I keep on having to change my chart. Like I changed it, so I added a bunch of Maneki Neko charms because that's what I did instead of some other things. And I just keep on changing it. Like, because I've changed it so much, it's more of a reflection of what I have done rather than what I'm hoping to do. There are still a few big projects that I've left on there. Like, I want to do the Ukrainian sampler. I want to do the kind kapal sal that Nithya is doing. And hopefully I make it through those. But yeah, I mean, there are no rules in WhipGo, but I'm definitely not following the spirit of how most people are doing it. Hopefully, after I have my life situation settles down a little bit and I don't have to worry about making a move happen, it will be fine. But hey, if you want, go check out my WhipGo board. I did actually, because I've changed it so many times, I do have a WhipGo. I haven't decided like what is my reward going to be. So when you get a whip go, when you get a nice a full line, like how do you reward yourself? I'm still kind of figuring out how I want to do all these things because I am a relatively new stitcher. I just passed my second year anniversary for cross stitching because I started the middle of summer 2020 because I finished out the spring 2020 school year because that, oh, the mid semester transition from in person to online, that was not fun. So like just getting to the end of that school year is what happened. But then the school year ended and I was sitting at home in summer, not leaving my apartment because that was way before vaccines were out there. I'm like, oh, I need a hobby that doesn't involve other people. Because I social partner dance. I've been doing that for many, many years. But that involves other people, and that is one of the most unsafe activities you could do in the middle of a pandemic. Social partner dancing is slowly starting to come back. It's definitely a little bit less than before, and many people are still a little bit hesitant. And maybe I will start to do that again eventually. But I am so happy now that I have this hobby that I can do by myself. I I've discovered how much I've been missing crafting, and it's also really impressive all of the friendships that I've been able to build over the internet. So thank you all who are here. And I mean, if you're not one of the people that I talk with a lot, like, I don't know, you want to be my next friend? Speaking of friends, I got the most beautiful box of goodies from Anna. Look what she sent me. So this is a needlepoint she found, I think at Goodwill or some thrift store. And this is a version of Young Girl Reading by, oh, I should have written this down. A French painter. This is my mom's favorite painting, and she does have my mom has a reproduction. The original one, the girl is wearing a yellow dress, so you can see someone did a beautiful color conversion. But I thought this was really cute because now my mom and I have like matching pieces of art. If you're really curious, I shared a side by side with the one my mom has. If you want to go look at it, um, one thing like it did come from a thrift store. So like it's just stapled onto this board here. You can see there's a little bit of wrinkles and there's a smell, like not much, but like I was like, oh, that smells of old. So I'm curious. I am kind of wondering if eventually I might want to take this apart, give it a bath, and like re-stretch it out because it, is a little bit wrinkly here. I'm assuming because it's needlepoint, it's probably wool. Do you think that's a safe assumption? Please help me here. So I would want to do some research into how to properly wash wool. Right now, all I've done is I've lint rolled, but I think eventually I may want to give it a bath and then frame it a little bit more nice. But for now, like perfectly fine. Definitely not messing with this before I move, and it is coming with me. I am so excited. So thank you, Anna. I was really touched. Um, but Anna didn't stop there. Look, she gave me so many goodies. You might have spied them. Oh my goodness. I have the most adorable little llama keychain, and these are for good luck. And look at this beautiful pencil and this beautiful Andean woman at the end. And the thing I am most excited about that Anna sent me is she sent me one of her early versions of cuttable. So I am in possession of an Anna original. I love it so much. And if I remember correctly, these pukata are bulls in that you find in Peruvian homes, sometimes on the roof, that are the protectors of the home. And this really reminds me of the shisa or the lions that we have in Okinawa. So uh, I was particularly touched when I saw this pattern and that I get one of the original versions, and I have been meaning to stitch the pattern that Anna has. I've bought it already. Just there are so many things to do, and my life has been a little bit hectic because, I got some stuff going on. But I've just been so touched by all of the friends I've made and the wonderful gifts I get. So Anna, thank you. Anna is one of the people I've been most excited to meet and to get to know a little bit more. Um, as I've been coming home and you saw the stitching that I just did, I have been catching up on months of Flosstube because I was months behind because I have been job interviewing, and several of those involved flights, and then I had that cursed summer camp, and I was so behind. Um, I've really been enjoying watching Miriam from Marumi Crafts recently. She has been coming out with her magical carpet menagerie designs. I am so amused because when she talks about the patterns she wants to stitch, she's like, "Oh, I love this pattern. Look at how weird it is." And talking about like she's drawn to these patterns because they're weird, which excellent props. I'm totally with you. But then when she's talking about her own design, she's like, oh, yeah, I had to make it less weird. I'm like, girl, come on. More weird. So please, I have been encouraging Miriam to make her designs more weird. Please join me. We need to convince her. She needs to come out with the weird version of her magical carpet menagerie. So far, I have bought one pattern, but kind of because she's told us that she's made them less weird. I'm waiting for the weird versions before I put more money down. Oh, you might also notice that Miriam does offer her patterns free for the first 6 months. You should pay for them. One thing I've noticed is most of the designers of color I see out there, they offer their patterns for much more cheap than most of the non-color designers. So yeah, which like that it's weird. And it kind of bothers me. We want to make sure that designers that are coming from marginalized communities are being compensated at the same rate. So if you have the means, make sure you are actually paying for Miriam's patterns. And also, Anna, you should charge more. Your patterns are lovely and they come with so much historical information. You deserve to get more money from them. Anyway, I have many soapboxes. Another thing I've been doing is I like to go back and watch people's floss tubes from the beginning because I really love seeing the journey. So I've been working my way through Bobo Jessie stitches lately. I love watching her. She has like does Flossoween and Stitchmas, so like mini vlogs every day of the month, which is super cute. So slowly working through that. Jessie is a legal aid attorney, so she has just so many beautiful nuggets of wisdom about law, but also like as a mixed race person. So if you need a little bit more perspective in your life, I highly recommend go giving her a watch. The other person I've been really enjoying lately is Yasmin from Yasmin's Made with Love. Again, I went back to the beginning and I've been watching recently. You've probably noticed me making all these comments on your videos lately, Yasmin. She's really fun because she focuses a lot on multicultural stitching and how can I represent multiple cultures in my own home. She has a diversity wall. It's been really nice, and I like seeing the way she thinks about what she's stitching, why she's doing it, and her finishes are just amazing. So definitely go give Yasmin a watch. So I have some plans I want to share with you. You may have seen the Ukrainian sampler by West Needle. I have finally put together all of my stuff. Okay, yep, everything's falling. You'll notice here that my organization system is chaos. I have both skeins and bobbins. It's a nightmare. I hate it. Yeah, it's fine. I when I first bought my threads, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna bobbinate everything, and then I realized I don't really like bobbins. So these bobbins are kind of the remnants of that first batch of threads I bought, and I do like after I partially use a skein, I will put it on bobbin. Anyway, yeah, eventually I will need to deal, but for now it's chaos, and yeah. Let's talk about this project. So I was so happy to see the Ukrainian sampler by West Needle. You should definitely check it out. The stitch model is gorgeous. And my understanding is each of the different motifs represent a different region of Ukraine. So I thought that was super cool and a great way for a Ukrainian designer to share their culture with the rest of the world. This is really what I was hoping to see from the Stitch Over Ukraine hashtag because we want to come in and support them uplifting their own culture. We want them to be the leaders. I have been seeing a lot of like other people come in and kind of center themselves and their own patterns, and that's a little weird. Again, we want to make sure whatever our actions are doing that we are actually helping and uplifting the people who are at the center of that conflict. And that's true for any other type of conflict. If we're talking about gay and queer rights, we want to make sure we are centering queer individuals rather than other people. So that's why during Stitch for Pride, we were highlighting queer designers rather than people who don't have that identity, who may have designed a rainbow pattern, right? So yeah, always think about who you're centering with what patterns you're stitching. But I want to share this fabric with you. It's so lovely. So this is sparkly fabric from xray Designs. Originally when I bought it, this is baby sheep. I thought it was closer to like a white, or like maybe an off-white. It's a pale yellow, which is fine. It's gorgeous. It's a lovely color. It's just not what I expected when I bought it. I thought it was more of a white or an off-white. And it's a pretty large piece. So I got him like, oh, how am I going to use this? So I'm excited that I found this project because I thought the pale yellow would be a really nice complement since there is yellow in the Ukrainian sampler. I did make a few small color changes. So I, switched out the blues because I was using Stitch with Susie's guide of this. These are the colors that are the closest to the official colors of the Ukrainian flag. So I want to make sure I'm using these exact colors. I switched out, instead of 550, I'm using 3837 because this is one of my favorite purples. Make it just a little bit brighter. And one thing I'm going to try is, instead of using black, I'm going to replace it with 154, so the darkest purple in the DMC range, just to make it a little bit softer and add a little bit more purple there. Adding a little bit of my own Okinawan spin because we really like purple. It's also my favorite color, kind of all tied together. But here I want your advice. So I'm really excited about this project. I finally got it all kitted up. One of the reasons I was so excited to finish my Plague Doctor pattern is the frame that project was on is the one that is big enough for this project, because this is quite a sizable one. Do I start this now? Do I just go? Is this the project that I work on while I'm packing? Do I like carry this giganto frame with me in those few weeks where I don't have most of my stuff? Or is it wisest to just put it all back in this plastic bag where I had everything and wait until after the move's done? How would you do that? Because I feel like I need a project, something to work on, but it doesn't necessarily have to be this one. Should I be, doing smalls between now and then? Try to like knock out some of those? I feel a little bit lost. I'm not quite sure what my next direction should be. I mean, moving sucks. But it's not the first time I've done this. I actually moved a year and a half ago in the middle of the pandemic, and I did most of that on my own. I also had more stuff then. So everything about my move that's coming up is going to be easier than the one I did a year and a half ago. So I definitely have all of it. It's just when I did my previous move, I wasn't as into cross stitch yet, and I just kind of had one small project that I could easily put in a travel container. And now I just have so much more stuff, more projects. They're bigger. All of the tools I'm using, the frames are much more elaborate. So I haven't quite figured out. And I would love your advice. Yeah, I noticed I've been really hesitant to share a lot of personal information on Flosstube because, it's just like out there on the internet. I don't know. Should I share more information? Mm. Help me make this decision. Anyway, yeah, these are the reasons why I've been like kind of all over the place, kind of inconsistent with everything, doing random stuff here and now. There are a couple things I'm going to share with you though. So one of my very best friends, Gray, he is crowdfunding for his top surgery right now. So Gray is an educator and activist around Black Black history and culture, specifically around blues music. So he has this fantastic blog and also a Patreon that you should definitely go check out. Even if blues isn't something you've been into yet, Black culture and Black music is at the foundation of so many things of modern American culture, and American culture kind of bleeds out into the rest of the world. So for those of you who aren't American viewers, I highly recommend go check out a little bit of his stuff because Black culture is the root of a lot of modern things now. And this is a great way for you to support someone who's from a marginalized identity and needs your support. So Gray has been trying to get top surgery for a couple years going through his insurance, but he's American. So he has recently made the decision that he's going to do it with dignity and just not worry about the insurance company. But that does mean it's a pretty penny. So he's trying to fund some money for the surgery itself, but also for his recovery period. So if you have any money to give, please, it now is the time where we need your help here. Definitely check out his blog, Obsidian Tea, and his Patreon, and I will link everything in the description box below. Another thing I've been doing recently is I recently got in the Uyghur Human Rights Project email list. There is injustice going on everywhere in the world. No, it's not fun. I do not enjoy reading about it, but I feel like keeping my finger on the pulse of these different things helps me be a more empathetic person and just a better individual overall. It definitely helps specifically because I'm an educator, so having an idea of what are the struggles different people are going through in the world helps me bring that empathy directly into my classroom. But every job, there is an amount of empathy required. So I highly recommend get on this email list. Start following other activists so you are aware of some of the things that are going on in the world. I think I saw something earlier today that several schools in America are trying to not give free lunch to queer students, and that's horrifying. So being aware of these different issues will help make you more informed and help understand the struggles of the other people who are going on around you. So that was a lot. Yeah. Help me figure out what I'm doing with this move of mine. This is why I've been a little bit scattered lately and a little bit inconsistent because I have all this stuff going on. But hopefully in a couple months I will be much more settled and I will be able to plan and stick to those plans. Very much looking forward to that. Thank you so much for stopping by. I'm really excited by the friends I've made in this community. Love to make some more. I hope your stitching's going well.